So with Dragon Ball Super, obviously there's people that love it, but there's also people that criticize it quite frequently and compare it to Dragon Ball Z in particular. Now, they don't necessarily compare it to GT that much, although there's the back and forth there occasionally as well, but the main comparison Dragon Ball Super gets is to Dragon Ball Z, because it's pretty much a similar type of deal. The characters are around the same age, and it kind of feels more like Z in that regard than like GT, where it's just mainly like Goku and Pan, or the original Dragon Ball when Goku was little. It's more so, if it's anything comparable, it's Z. And people always say that it comes short in every aspect. And honestly, after seeing the latest episode of Dragon Ball Super, it really dawned on me, because prior to this episode, there were instances here or there, and I almost felt like, okay, I could kind of see certain aspects, but it wasn't until this episode that it really felt as though, okay, Dragon Ball Super is doing one major thing I think better than Z. Now, before people start attacking, oh, shut the fuck up, Dragon Ball Z is the godlike, give me a second to explain, please. Dragon Ball Z obviously had the most climactic, incredible fights, you know, Gohan and Cell, Goku and Cell, Goku and Boo, Goku and Frieza, incredible fights, there's no arguments there. In fact, in comparison to like Super, yeah, Super's fights don't, you know, quite hold a candle to those fights. Those fights were just on another level, the stakes were so high, everything about those fights were insane. But if you go bit by bit through Super, there's something again that I feel as though Super does nicely that Z, because of the format, just really didn't focus on. And for starters, one thing about it is it didn't really focus on the side characters. After a certain point in Dragon Ball's story as a whole, it left a lot of characters in the dust. People like Krillin, people like Piccolo. A lot of these characters, they were just like left to the side, like, you know, it's the Goku and Vegeta show. At the end of the day, if you're not a Saiyan, if you don't have a Super Saiyan transformation, you're pretty much not going to be that relevant or that useful. And I feel as though even going back to the very first arc, or even the movie, Battle of Gods, I felt as though it started to implement that slowly. Because when Beerus came down to Earth, even though, yes, he did kick everyone's ass, and it wasn't until Goku had the Super Saiyan God transformation that there was even somebody that was capable of giving Beerus somewhat of a fight, or a challenge for that matter. But it did showcase, they were like, yo, let's put all the Z Warriors trying to throw hands at him. Let's see Piccolo, let's see Krillin, let's see Tien, let's see 18, let's get all of these characters involved somehow. And that's really awesome, because again, especially towards the end of Dragon Ball Z, it was really just like, nobody's doing nothing. I think one of the last times that I can remember that a character that wasn't Goku, Vegeta, or even Gohan for that matter, that had a moment where it was like, yo, this guy could actually be the hero of this arc, is, if I'm not mistaken, Piccolo. And again, I'm of course Goten and Trunks as well during the Boo stuff or whatever. So, you know, pretty much the Saiyans as a whole. But Piccolo, when he went up against, I believe it was Imperfect Cell, that was one of the last times where I felt as though truly a character that wasn't a Saiyan was capable of doing some damage and also getting that incredible screen time, where it's just like, yo, this is it. He's getting some good recognition right here. After that, I mean, especially during the Majin Buu saga, it was pretty much like no one's doing nothing to Buu and everyone is completely irrelevant. But again, you go to Super, Battle of Gods, everyone tried their best. Obviously, they got fodderized, but nevertheless, they got some screen time. Then you even go to Resurrection F, which I would argue, because I know people, you know, hate the TV adaptation of it in comparison to the movie. I mean, as a whole, Resurrection F just has a lot of problems. But nevertheless, I think something that even the TV series did better than the movie was that, again, it focused on giving a lot of these side characters their moments. But the movie did it as well, where you get to see Master Roshi going in. You get to see Krillin. You get to just see everybody that has been sidelined for so long in the Dragon Ball story once again come back and be useful and just get some really cool moments. So it really showcased there. And by the way, you know, again, they were using a lot of strategy even in the Resurrection F stuff, because they had thousands of enemies of Frieza's troops coming at them, and they had to be crafty and, you know, figure out, okay, I gotta take these two, and then, you know, I gotta die. Like, you know, they were just doing everything they possibly could to survive and take out all of Frieza's troops. Obviously, in the end, the endgame boss had to be Goku and Vegeta to stop him, but still, they had their moments. They actually did some cool shit. You go to Universe 6. Again, an example is Piccolo's fight versus Frost. Now, the outcome terrible. I ain't gonna lie, I did not like that outcome, even though, yeah, it was like, oh shit, this dude's cheating, but Piccolo did have a really awesome fight. And once again, it showcased something interesting that was lost from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, and that's that even though Piccolo was completely outmatched, he said it even before the fight started, yeah, I'm probably gonna get bodied, but just study my fight at the very least, he could have taken out Frost using strategy. And the big thing of all of this, because I know you're probably saying ForneverWorld, where are you going with this? What are you getting at? Is that it's showcasing that it's not always the brute force and the power level that is the deciding factor of the fight. I feel as though Super has brought that in, which, again, I would argue that Dragon Ball, and maybe you could argue parts of Z did try that at some given points, but for the most part, like from Frieza on especially, it was like power level, shut the fuck up. Like, that was pretty much it, and people will argue to the depths of dawn about that. But when Frost and Piccolo went at it again, and Piccolo just... he could have beat him. If it wasn't for the stupid cheating, Piccolo would have won that fight, even though he was outclassed. And that was such a great thing. And that's why, if you go back and watch my reaction to that episode, I was like, this was fucking awesome. Not only was it a great fight, but Piccolo was going to defeat somebody that was way stronger than him by using strategy. And the Tournament of Power is no exception. I mean, we'll skip over the Goku Black stuff because, again, it was mainly the Saiyans. And even though they did do something cool with giving Trunks the moment, which was rightfully so, right? I mean, that was his problem, so him finishing off the villain was supposed to be the case, but yeah, the ending with the sword and all that, that was a bit out there, you know what I'm saying? But with the Tournament of Power approaching, some of these episodes, even though people would argue they're filler or whatnot, they showcase and build up something great, and especially with the latest episode, that even if you're completely outclassed, because I'm not exactly a aficionado of every single power level. From my understanding, from what I've read, it could be totally misinformation or whatever, so don't take it as a grain of salt. But from my knowledge, from what I might know, I believe Krillin's power level is supposedly at like base Frieza and Namek, somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken. That's what I think Krillin's power level is at, because again, I've heard that. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's where my mind always is with Krillin anyway. He's about, at his max, he's base power level Frieza. And he goes up against Goku, and while you would argue like, what the hell is this? One of the things that it was trying to focus on is using strategy. Even if somebody is millions and billions of miles stronger and faster and everything, you can still outwit somebody. You can still use your experience to your advantage and potentially come out on top. You could go back and watch my review. I was disappointed in Gohan and Goku for kind of getting pushed back, and, you know, Krillin was kicking their asses, but you think about it, he used strategy. When he tried to break the building under Goku, when he blindsided Gohan, that is a great element that I love. And then, of course, in the episode, which this isn't an episode review, but just seeing the relationships as well. That's another thing that Super's been doing. But the main thing I want to talk about is, you know, the whole strategy stuff. But even the relationships, like just focusing in on 18 and what Krillin truly means to her. You didn't get that in Z. You didn't get really them diving into things. At most, you would get a little subtle glimpse of one character caring for another, but you didn't really get, like with those type of relationships, full-on insight as to how much they care about each other. Super is doing that too, but the best thing is, like, it's giving me high hopes, and I really hope I'm not proven wrong, that the Tournament of Power is going to bring back a great element from the early days of Dragon Ball before we hit Z, where power levels aren't the end-all be-all. Even in the episode when 18 says Krillin's gonna be reminded of just how weak he is compared to them, it didn't matter, because Krillin was going in. And granted, yeah, Goku would have defeated him in the end, but that's ultimately because, again, you know, to a certain degree, power levels do matter as far as, like, hey, if I'm going on a one-on-one with somebody and I'm trying to push them back, if they are stronger than me, there's nothing I can do to out-strategize them to push them forward. So, in a sense, yeah, power levels do come into play, but especially with a tournament like that, where everyone is just a free-for-all, it's going to be great to see strategy, and it's great to see something like Super that gets a lot of criticism for being inferior to Z. That's just the bottom line. People say that it's inferior to Z. To see it doing something great, like using strategy and wits and experience, it's making me hopeful that Master Roshi could have incredible fights and kick some major ass. And also, it's just starting to make sense why Goten and Trunks, while they have the power and the brute force, yes, they do have that. And Gotenks, there's no questions about it. Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, that is insane power. But they're inexperienced. And somebody like Master Roshi, while he's completely outclassed by probably everybody that's going to be there, if he could trick people, if he could out-strategize them, if he could do what Krillin did to Goku and Gohan using techniques that is just going to blindside the enemy, this could be great things. And honestly, I feel as though Super, with the strategy and even the relationships and building the characters, like again, Krillin has had immense character development in Super's doing it better than Z to a certain degree. I will say that. Really curious what you guys think about this. How do you feel regarding what Super has been doing to showcase that brute force isn't everything? Do you think that that's a great thing? Do you miss the simplicity of Z? Because that was something that was nice too, that it was just simple, like two guys duking it out. Who's stronger, we'll find out. Like, you know, that was a great thing, but to get a little bit more strategy in there and a little bit more, you know, looking at it from a critical standpoint, Super is doing that better. But again, kind of curious what you think about this. Do you think that there's huge potential for people like Roshi and Tien and Krillin and Piccolo and all the people that have been completely outclassed to actually have great fights, and ultimately, even if they lose, at the very least, be useful and get their moments? Because we've wanted that for so long, and to finally see this coming to fruition is like, yeah, Super is doing it good. But that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and stalk my Facebook to get more when the video ends. I'm ForneverWorld, and as always, people, have an awesome day.